Former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, and he writes a free newsletter that's available at Gingrich360.com. Good morning to you, Mr. Speaker.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. So the legal briefs are out. I'm sure you've read the Democrats' legal brief, and then the what are they called? The House managers, which are the Democrats, and then Trump's team. Exactly. So President Trump's legal brief.
The president's team.
That's right. His team says the articles themselves and the rigged process that brought them here are a brazenly political act by House Democrats that must be rejected. The Democratic House manager's legal brief says quite the opposite. President Trump is engaged in the trifecta of constitutional misconduct, warranting removal. He is the framers' worst nightmare come to life. What do you think about these?
Sure. I think Doug Collins, in the quote you just said, sort of captured, look, Democrats, particularly partisan Democrats, hate Donald Trump. They get up every morning knowing that they hate Donald Trump. They watch him tweet something, then they hate him even more. And what they know is he ought to be impeached because he's Donald Trump. There's nothing, this is the first time in American history that we've had a purely political impeachment, much like you would have in a British parliamentary system if you had a vote of no confidence. Now, there's no provision in the American Constitution for a vote of no confidence. Presidents are elected. They serve 4 years. In fact, Alexander Hamilton worried in the Federalist Papers that we'd have something like this kind of idiotic behavior by the Democrats. The fact is they have no case. I mean, if you just think about it, the president was initially attacked over dealing with Russia, which turned out not to be true. And after months of investigation, Mueller had to issue a report that said there's nothing here that is impeachable. Then you have the current mess where the president of Ukraine has said he certainly didn't feel pressured. The actual transcript of the telephone call does not indicate any kind of pressure. They end up with a whistleblower who doesn't exist, who they're afraid to bring out in public. All the time they had in the House, they could have brought the whistleblower in. So this entire current fantasy of theirs is built around a person they were afraid to bring public because he would have been annihilated by the facts. And so I think where you're at is pretty straightforward. If you don't like Donald Trump, you're going to love the House brief. If you have an open mind, you're going to think the House brief is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Newt, you know there are not 20 Republican senators who are going to vote to impeach this president and throw him out of office. So why is Nancy Pelosi doing it? It looks like, you know, and we heard from the president's team, a brazen political vendetta. It looks like a brazenly political act because she wants to preserve her speakership. And the one accomplishment this November she's going to be able to say is, you know, the base wanted an impeachment and we delivered. Hey, can't blame the Senate. They didn't follow us.
Well, first of all, Gallup reported 93% of Republicans favor Trump. Now, that's an amazing number. It means that none of the Republican senators in the end are going to decide to commit suicide by voting against the president. So, and I think the president, frankly, was brilliant to go to Davos. So the opening day of the Senate trial, he's in Davos with other world leaders making a great speech on the economy, which is clearly his biggest strength.
Right.
And I think the counter-programming is pretty good. I think there are two possibilities with Pelosi. One is that the passion on the left is so enormous that she didn't have any choice. That to not have moved it would have led to such a rebellion in her own party that she had to go ahead and try to do it. The second, more cynical interpretation is that they desperately hope they can scar Trump up enough because every time they back off, his numbers get higher. CNN just reported the strongest numbers they've had, I think, since last March for Trump. So I think part of it was a hope that they could scar him up enough to defeat him this fall. I think, in fact, they vaccinated him, and he's even more likely to win now than he was before this started.
I've seen some suggest that the delivery of the papers to the Senate was actually the delivery of the re-election papers across to the other body. Today is actually an amazing, you're right, a split-screen moment. You've got Washington obsessed with an impeachment process while the president is doing the bidding of the American people. But on the impeachment, it now goes to Chuck Schumer as the Democrat minority leader in the Senate, he's yelling about the rules and how unfair they are in the Senate. Here's Schumer yesterday.
It is now certain that Leader McConnell is going along with President Trump's cover-up, hook, line, and sinker, on something as important and serious as impeachment. Senator McConnell's resolution is a national disgrace. Senator McConnell repeatedly promised the senators, the public, the press, that his rules for the trial would be the same as the rules in the Clinton impeachment. Nothing could be further from the truth.
So yelling about the rules and saying it's a cover-up, what's the strategy from Senate Democrats here, Mr. Speaker?
Well, look, you have to start with a simple reality. Mitch McConnell currently has more capability of leading the Senate than anybody in my lifetime. So take, for example, the very crucial issue of judges. It's 187 judges plus 2 Supreme Court justices to 0 for Schumer. So from a standpoint of Schumer, every week he gets up, he goes in, McConnell dominates all week long, and then after the weekend, they go back and they do this again. The most that Schumer has going right now is whining. He doesn't have a case to make, so he's going to whine for a while. Well, you can't blame him. I mean, he's got to do something or people won't think he's their leader.
Well, that's their only play, it seems like. But when you get into the Wayback Machine, Newt, and you look at what a letter from Senator Schumer regarding President Clinton's impeachment, Chuck Schumer said, let us shake hands and say we are now going to forego bringing down people for political gain. This is such delicious irony. Let us understand that our leaders have foibles, and though we must be held to a higher standard, let us not make it a sport to expose those witnesses. Do you think he still feels that way?
Look, I think that impeachment is an extraordinarily political act and was designed to be an extraordinarily political act. The founding fathers basically said, if you have a president who is so terrible that they're a threat to the republic, you do have a mechanism to get rid of them. And every time it's been tried, it's failed so far. We were put in a position by Ken Starr's report where he said on 11 different topics that Clinton clearly had done things that had to be interpreted as serious, including perjury, which is a felony. You can go to jail for it. The problem the Democrats have had is that their big moment, their Ken Starr moment, was the Mueller report. And the Mueller report was the opposite of the Ken Starr report. Mueller said in the end, gosh, I couldn't find anything. So they went out and made this up. And I think that puts him in a very difficult position. And Schumer knows this. I mean, I'm sure if you could ever get him to quietly, off the record, sit down and have a drink sometime, he'll tell you candidly, he's playing a terrible hand as well as he can.
Yeah.
So true. Speaker Newt Gingrich, thank you very much for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's head over to Jillian, who has some